So let's see. We have Chandrashekar with us as well, from AceMicromatic. Very good. And Olivier as well, Germain from Tetra, you're with us as well. Great. And here in the studio, we have as well Jessica Öberg, CEO from Combitech. We have as well Filip Stål from PTC Nordics, who is Vice President and General Manager as well for the Nordics area. And last but not least, we have Peter Malmberg, who is Vice President of Digitalization at Epiroc. Thank you so much for being here with us, dear panel. Maybe I can start with you, Chandrashekar. Could you briefly share, because I think many from the Nordic crowd here, Nordic audience, might not know so much about AceMicromatic and what your role is vis-a-vis Industry 4.0. Could you share a bit about how you're supporting that drive and that adoption across the world?
Sure. Thank you, Johan. AceMicromatic is India's largest manufacturer of CNC machine tools and automation products. And we also happen to be the first mover in India to introduce what's now being called Industry 4.0. So not only we operate in India at scale, but we also operate in about 20 different select export markets. The perspective that we have bought is while we currently have a capacity of producing more than 10,000 CNC machines every year, we have worked very closely with the traditional SME market, which the tier 1s, tier 2, tier 3s, all the way to potentially mom and pop shops as well. And from an Industry 4 perspective, we were so early on that we started to solve a lot of their specific productivity pains. And that has given us traction and enabled us to build out an entire stack of smart manufacturing applications and Industry 4 touch points. And along with our CNC machines, we're able to add on these Industry 4 elements, which make them ready for integration right from the get-go.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, great. So Filip, how about you? You guys at PTC are also working really to drive the implementation of Industry 4.0. What is something that is exciting for you over the coming years? What do you think the future has in store for the near future?
Yeah, well, I think when we talk digitalization, it's about data for sure, but the data somehow already exists. I think companies out there, they are producing tons of data already, and they are generating more and more data around the way they design, manufacture, and service and operate their products. And with even more products being connected to internet, even more data will be out there. So I think the challenge for the industry is not to produce more data. It's more, how do we get good business use of the data? And since the data, if you just talk about the product today, a product being engineered, designed, produced, operated, and serviced, it holds a lot of data today. But that data resides within functions like engineering department, shop floor production, and in the field with aftermarket and service, and even in the hands of the customer. So how do we bring all those data lakes together and bring them up to something that makes sense? How do we analyze it? How do we put context around the data? And how do we put this data in the hands of decision makers? Because data is almost useless unless you make something out of it. And that is the big challenge that we see with the customers. And that is also when you hear Industry 4.0, if you hear smart manufacturing. In Sweden, we have production 2030. We hear digitalization, transformation, a lot of buzzwords. For us, it means how do we make data available for business decision makers? Because that is where you take smarter business decisions. So we see this coming. The early adopters are already on these journeys. They have transformation plans, they have roadmaps, they are early on. But we still see a lot of companies out there. They are in the very beginning.
Right.
So I think that excites me. That is still so much to do.
All right. So what about Peter? You're from Epiroc.
Yes.
I guess you guys are working really intensely to try and find that insight from the data you're collecting. How far have you guys come in that journey?
Well, you can say we, as Epiroc, is a world-leading productivity partner when it comes into the mining industry, and of course we have both, let's say, machines and equipment in field that is generating quite a lot of information and data. That provides the customer then with a decent set of data. And we are building quite a lot of tools, softwares around those kind of data lakes, as you like, and machines. So I would say that we are on the forefront of digitalization when it comes to providing solutions to our customers around the globe. So yeah. And then, of course, when it comes to our own manufacturing, so because we have quite a few manufacturing and assembly units around the world, where we also then, as previous speaker here, when it comes to machinery and equipment and steel cutting and also softwares. So that is also an area where we feel that we are getting further and further developing than the digital analytics around our own manufacturing as well.
All right, but you still have some ground to cover, I guess.
Oh,
as well.
absolutely. No, you never, let's say, get to the finish line. That's for sure.
Definitely.
So we still have plenty of things to do. Definitely.
All right. So Olivier, at Tetra Pak, I would assume you guys also are really working to try and get that insight from data. How is that progressing? How far have you come in that journey?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Industry 4 is very present in Tetra Pak, and we have been investing a lot in that field. And I'd like to basically take a bit of a step back on the history, because we have always tried to do more out of less. You know, our customers in all industries are centered around that. It's a bit of a holy grail. And it's obviously to get more operational effectiveness, and this is a way to gain competitive advantage. Now, one thing we have high in our mind in Tetra Pak today is, on top of this mandatory operational effectiveness, we have now another mandatory goal, which is to be sustainable. And this is super important for our planet. You know, the scarcity of resources. We want to leave behind us a planet that can feed our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. But I think the good news is that Industry 4, you know, which was triggered with this formidable breakthrough of technology, IoT, data management, cloud, and AI, I think those are really key enablers for us to develop those smarter solutions to get to do more from less and leave that planet hopefully in a better state than it is going towards today.
Now, are you making any specific initiatives to drive sustainability on the Tetra Pak side?
Yeah, we do. I think one of very tangible results we are having today with some applications is on the waste. You know, in the food and bev manufacturing process, there is some waste, and there is ways to reduce that further with Industry 4, with AI. Very tangible results on the way we offer applications to manage the OEE, you know, overall equipment efficiency. We have some means of finding root cause of waste during the manufacturing process and help our customers to eradicate that waste. You know, this is one of the direct application. The other one is more on the quality of these packs, you know, that we are producing. For the aseptic performance of the packs, we need to do some sampling. This is very classical in the industry, and any package which is sampled is a waste. And so it is our interest and our customer interest to reduce that waste. And we do that with a quality data management systems, which are using AI insights, you know, to better understand and better predict the aseptic performance of the plant itself. Better predict as well the forming, you know, the quality of the shape of the package. And those applications allow us as well to reduce the waste. These are one, yeah.
All right, yeah, obviously waste is a really important aspect as well as efficiency. Thank you, Olivier. I'm turning to you, Jessica, as well. And you joined Combitech quite recently, a Saab subsidiary. And I understood that at Saab as well, you were working with the manufacturing side of things. And now you said as well previously that sustainability is really at the core of what Combitech is doing as well. What is your view on sustainability in the Industry 4.0 area?
I think it's multi-dimensioned, because sustainability for me is both to be very competitive, to make sure that our manufacturers here in both current and what we have in Linköping, for instance, within Saab, but also new built facilities in US where you're using the greenfield, to make sure that you are using it in the smartest way that you can, making sure it's sustainable for the future and for the next generation. Of course, it's easier for greenfield because you can talk about smart lighting and from a fresh start, but also to be sustainable in the brownfield. When you are already having an existing production line, how do you get that to be even smarter? How can you make sure that that is sustainable? But also from a perspective of the culture, that we have a work environment for our employees, both within Combitech and Saab and in other of our customers, that the production lines are as attractive so you can both keep your employees and feel that you are part of something that is bigger moving forward, and have that as a way of being sustainable from a workforce as well. And then you have, of course, the environment. How can you use the production line that you have in the very, very most efficient way that we can, and integrate smart technologies. And I think that's where Combitech, a company that we don't have our own products so much, a lot of solutions, and we are consulting partners, and we bring smartness between different both segments and companies, and creating this partner network, I think is really important. So maybe a long answer to a quick and sharp question. So sorry for that.
No, thank you very much. That's great. So Chandrashekar, turning to you again, we heard a couple of examples of greenfield sites as well, being set up by Saab and Combitech previously, and also Ericsson setting up these new sites that can really be state-of-the-art. But obviously brownfield upgrades is also going to be an important aspect to drive Industry 4 as well as sustainability. How is that from your perspective? I mean, looking at the developing markets as well, what are the opportunities with greenfields versus brownfield investments?
I think you're asking a really important question to ensure Industry 4 takes hold and actually delivers on its promise. What we have done, and the perspective that we carry, is that a lot of the large manufacturers, the product companies, tend to get it right in terms of being able to deploy Industry 4.0, especially for assembly operations. However, even in large product companies, harmonizing the entire value chain inside the company sometimes itself is a challenge. A bigger challenge that we see is when they start coming down to the tier 1s, 2s, and 3s, which is where the bulk of manufacturing actually happens in terms of components and part assemblies and sub-assemblies, is where the greatest need for Industry 4.0 is actually there, but is currently not being felt as much. And part of that is, when you look at the typical efficiencies of the tier 1s, 2s, and 3s, all the way down to the mom and pop, they could be as low as 40%, the OEE that the earlier speaker mentioned. So there is a lot of upside for OEE to go up. So essentially, they can find a machine behind every machine. And oftentimes what we have found is that the factors that prevent that from happening are not necessarily high-tech in nature, not necessarily production engineering or new methods of manufacturing or automation. I would say a good 70-80% are low-hanging fruit, transient in nature. So the ability to access the right data at the right time by the right person and be armed with the tools to actually make a difference is what makes Industry 4 happen in scale. And that's what we've focused on. And I'm really happy to say that a lot of our customers in that space have seen incredible turnarounds in their efficiencies and their ability to sustain a competitive advantage and a cost advantage to their value chain.
All right, thanks. Olivier, at Tetra Pak, I guess you are also working not just within your own operations, but also, as Chandrashekar was alluding to, with the supply chain and the suppliers in different ways. What's your view on that? Like, how much can you achieve on your own, and how much must be done in collaboration with others in your value chain?
That's a very good question. Yeah, indeed. This is one of the challenge of Industry 4. We are, it's a high-tech thing. And we are in the equipment business, and we are not a Google, company. So we have to build the capabilities to sustain these developments and support our customers. And it cannot be done organically. This is not an option. So we do grow organically, bringing in capabilities in-house, but we also look for a strong partnership, with high-tech system integrator, for example, and also with startups and also prominent universities. So this is building around us, the capabilities we need to develop our products and roll them out in scale. And thus we are building this ecosystem, which is a big change from what was done earlier in the company. The R&D was a bit more internally focused and more as an ecosystem. Right now we are definitely moving to this ecosystem, and this is how we answer to that challenge.
All right, thanks, Olivier. What about Epiroc? Is that also an approach that you're having to work with, not just within your own operations, but with partners and value chain?
No, I think that's absolutely critical for us to work with partners, both when it comes to, let's say, customer solutions. We don't have, let's say, the complete package to supply a kind of long-term sustainable solution. We have our, let's say, capabilities and where we are investing in and so forth, but we need partners also to support us in that development. And as I said, we have electrification, automation, digitalization as the core focus areas in our company, and of course we need to collaborate with different partners to uplift, let's say, our offering then to our customers. And referring back a little bit to the sustainability discussion previously, I think we have in a couple of important initiatives when it comes to sustainability. For example, solar panel projects in India that we have been investing in right now. Also when it comes to use heating in our own operations, in our own manufacturing from our machines and so forth. So there are plenty of things that you can do from a sustainability perspective in your facility. The most important thing is that you do something and you start that journey. And there is a lot of things that you can do already now you don't need to start from a complete platform perspective. You can always start small and accelerate.
Right. With the opportunities of technologies and softwares that are out there already.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does that resonate with Combitech as well? How you guys are working to collaborate with others?
Very much so. As a partner, it's kind of our task to make sure that you have the right people around the table to take the decisions. We bring processes and methods and knowledge and experience and trying to cross-function or cross-use the functionality or experience that we have from example, the defense business to really tricky environment in the mining industry. You might look at these two segments and say, what do they have in common? A lot, I would say, and especially now when we're talking digital transformation. How can we reuse the knowledge? How can we reuse the experience that we have? And then we all are really interested in having this as a secure area. The cybersecurity, making sure that the information isn't getting in hands of people that are not trustworthy, that shouldn't have it, in order for us to run our individual business with our partners. So a partnership is really important to us as well, for sure.
Right. Turning to you, Filip. PTC, I would guess you have a suite of nice new solutions, brand new cutting-edge technology to really revolutionize Industry 4.0 and how manufacturing is done, as do other providers as well. Yeah. Why is it not progressing quicker? Why are not these tools and solutions being used more rapidly? Why is the take-up not going as fast as we would be hoping?
I think, yes, it's an advanced portfolio, but it also spreads across many functions within a company. Back in the days, our solution portfolio was only kind of targeting the engineering and R&D function in a way. So the business decisions were a little bit like functional, but today it's much more cross-functional. And in order to get a company aligned on a change or on a transformation, to get the full value of a complete suite of solutions, you really need to anchor the decisions pretty high up in the organization at a level where you have a complete overlook. Because if you not anchor it up there, the decisions tend to be functional again. So you can drive a lot of efficiency out of the engineering department, but from a Industry 4.0 perspective, it might be very much sum-optimized. You don't really generate the bigger business value for the business unless you target the end-to-end process. And that is complicated. It's complicated for us, being a partner to our customers, but we also see that the customers are struggling to get this kind of anchoring, to get senior business leaders involved in digitalization. For many of those, digitalization is also a little bit difficult to grasp. What is it? Is it a term? How can that help me make my business more efficient? How can I turn kind of technology into something that adds value to my business? So this is complicated for everybody, I think.
Right, and as we heard just previously, it's not just about aligning internally between functions, but maybe also with your partners and your peers and your value chain to make sure you're in sync over there. Olivier, you mentioned when we spoke a couple of days ago that you have actually been trying to break down silos between functions in the companies to work more together and not just work within the operations silo and the engineering silo. Could you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a red thread, between engineering and operations, and we are designing solutions, which are, let's say, Industry 4 is serving both the design of our machines and their operations. I mentioned, waste reductions. We also develop solutions for the asset monitoring so that we can maintain the assets up and running. And we develop for that digital twins of these assets. And those digital twins are model representations of the asset. And they are fed with data from the field so that we can predict what's going to happen with that equipment. And this type of information flow and this type of simulation is used both by the engineering department and again by the operation and by our customers. So it is really that digital thread, which another buzzword that we hear, but which is reality. Something continues from the engineering of equipment down to the utilization on site and the optimization with services improvement. That's the way we are breaking up those silos, I think, between parts of the company and our customers.
Super interesting. Chandrashekar, what about from your perspective? I gather you're working across many continents and many different regions globally. Are you noticing different patterns in how companies are managing to align their priorities and also internally between functions? Any tendencies there vis-a-vis the Nordics, perhaps specifically, and India?
I'm actually happy to say that a lot of Nordic companies operating in India, we work very closely with them, like the Alpha Levels, the SKFs, and others. So what we see is more than the divide across geographies, it's really the product companies versus the supply chain. That's where we believe there's more contrast that can be seen. While the product companies across the globe tend to have a fairly harmonized approach, the differences in their next tiers is where we see the regional disparities as well. So, however, the bottom line that undercuts all of that is each one of these companies, specifically from an engineering shop floor perspective, want to bring in more predictability of production, more predictability of, let's say, cycle times, and reduce downtimes. And that seems to be the thread that ties all of them together. And that's what we have been trying to look at, which is the thread with which we can take a tier 1, 2, or 3 and spread it across geographies and increase their ability to sustain a level of efficiency that's independent of either the geography or the people specifically involved.
All right. So Peter, does that resonate with you? I'm thinking about the challenges to really drive this transformation in the organization.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. No, I think it's perfectly, let's say, corresponding to our ambition. So and I was also thinking a little bit about this kind of setup and the digital thread that we have, of course, a global footprint, and for us it's very important then to be able. We saw that now also during the pandemic here, that we need to be able then to supply from our different manufacturing units. So that kind of if you call it a regionalization supply, if you like, is also critical for us to be able then to serve our customers. So I think the digitalization for us is really, really important, both when it comes then to the platforms and also to the supply model, that we are flexible with that.
All right. Interesting as well, you're mentioning that there's been a slight shift in strategy post the pandemic.
Absolutely. No, I think it has been, let's say, previously a little bit the trend that you have been centralizing your manufacturing to be able then to get the scale of economics and that. But since pandemic, and maybe also a little bit before pandemic, we saw at least that we need to be able to serve our customers in a service, and lead time is of course important for us to be able then to be a competitive equipment supplier, OEM supplier. But the pandemic also brought that a little bit higher on the agenda, if you like. So I think we have managed very well actually to manage that by really utilizing our global footprint. We have very, very skilled people around the world that has done a tremendous job now during this period here. Getting the supply together and so it's been a challenge. But as you say, there's been a little bit of shift in between the kind of more centralized versus then the localization of the manufacturing. Absolutely. So the digitalization is of course an enabler for doing that a little bit more efficient.
Right.
Sure.
So Filip, at PTC, you're also working in different regions. Are you seeing this post-pandemic changes as well, regionalization, more regional manufacturing, or does that differ maybe in different industrial verticals?
No, I think what Peter's saying, we see that there's a tendency that they want to move production and the supply chain a bit closer, at least have a plan B or something to hold on to when next pandemic is around the corner. That's what we see, but we don't really see major trends, major moves right now, but that might come.
All right, so more adaptations to make your supply chains a bit more robust, perhaps?
Yeah, but also we clearly see that the pandemic has resulted in something positive, that people are getting more used to actually collaborate across different geographies, and I think that's a positive thing, that you can actually design and develop products and manufacture products even though you not meet every day. So I think there will be a new normal that is a combination of the past and the future. And I think if you manage that, you're in a good position.
Right, Jessica, is there any specific technologies that you're looking at and thinking about in Industry 4.0?
Yeah, a lot of technologies, but I would actually like to enter it in from another angle, because I think most of us are engineers. We like new techniques. We're digging into that. We're finding it so fascinating. We're trying new things. But in the end, I think it's really important to not lose track of the people perspective. So I would like to bring that in, because it's about building trust for all this automation, all about this digital transformation, all these new techniques and way of workings. But in the end, it's us, human beings, people within the organization, no matter if it is blue collars on the floor that is running the production line, or if it's the senior management who's taking the strategic decision. It all comes down that we need to have a trust and understand where we're heading. And so I would like to emphasize the people in this process, not just the technique, even if I love the technical perspective of it, but don't forget the people perspective.
Indeed, yeah. So Epiroc, are you also working with the people aspect?
Absolutely.
In this
Just also to add the diversity, I think that has also been a great benefit with having a global company and having a diverse teams. So I think that has been a very, very important, let's say, ingredients then of being able to actually solve these issues. So diversity is a fundamental thing for us when it comes to innovation and designing the future company. So that's really, really important to use the different skill sets and the different cultures and so forth. For us, it's really, really important.
Olivier, at Tetra Pak, you're both having your own operations, but you're also developing solutions for others to run in their operations, obviously. People must be central in this strategy as well, to retain the right talent, to train your in-house talent, as well as with the customers. Is that something that you are working with as well?
Yeah, of course, retaining people is key for our company, and especially on these high-tech segments, which are very attractive to people. One of the things that Tetra Pak does very well is care about people, and that I think contributes to keeping them with us. And another specific point is on getting young talents from out of universities. We have for that a specific program, which is called Future Talent, and where we bring in people for a cycle of 2 years. During those 2 years, they will rotate like every 3 months in different parts of the company to be able to learn, the full value chain in Tetra Pak. And we do that only, for so many engineers every year, but it does bring a way to create a network and assemble people together so that they're going to want to continue working for the company for a long time and grow in the company. That's a very effective way of doing this.
Interesting. Thank you very much. Chandrashekar, what do you think is essential for companies that want to be in the cutting edge to really have the right people when trying to implement their digital transformation in Industry 4.0?
I would talk about, firstly, a culture of change. And the second is the competency building that needs to happen at multi-levels, not just with the people that, quote unquote, operate the systems, but also the consumers of that insight, right all the way to the CXO level. And the third is a methodology that needs to sustain through whether it is different teams, whether it is different generations of, so let's say typically the family-owned businesses, or the different processes that a company uses in order to effect change to happen. So these three, I would say, are the pillars of ensuring that Industry 4 and its adoption towards business goals can happen.
All right. On the sustainability area, Chandrashekar, is there any trends you're seeing that? Is that picking up on your side of things as well?
What we're seeing is that most major companies today are doing two things. One is Industry 4 or digitalization is actually becoming front and center in terms of their key result areas that they're monitoring right from the CXO level all the way down to the individual, maybe the factory floor level. That's number one. The second is most of the large companies are asking their value chain to also replicate the same model. And the third is, especially in India, CII, I'm part of the CII Smart Manufacturing Council, which is doing a lot of policy research, advocacy, and we've gotten the federal government to seed centers of excellence funded by a fairly substantial grant. And these centers of excellence are typically at top academic and government institutions, which are trying to propagate Industry 4 in a fairly methodical way, supplanted by things like assessments and training and whatever the ecosystem needs. So this is what is happening in India, the way we see it. And also the same model is starting to replicate in several other countries as well.
All right, interesting. It's very promising development, I must say. I think it's looking really, really positive for the future. And actually on that topic, Filip, as a final question here, what do you think is something that you're hoping to see develop in the Industry 4.0 area over the coming few years?
Hoping or expecting or what's realistic, but I'm coming back to what I said. I think more and more companies they're getting matured. They understand that as soon as we can get the data in the hands of decision makers, that will drive a complete new way of doing business. And more companies are getting there. So I think somebody here earlier said Industry 4.0 has not really materialized in the pace that we expected. I think we're not maybe in the beginning, but we are still in the early phases. So if you look from now and the next 5 years, you will see a lot of things happening. Companies are getting matured.
Yeah.
People are getting matured. They're preparing themselves, and it's going to be interesting years ahead.
Sounds very promising.
I hope
Indeed.
so.
Jessica, anything in particular you're thinking about or looking forward to for the next couple of years?
That the next generation is proud of what we contributed to. I mean, we have a huge challenge that we are in the middle of, but we need to leave a workplace after us that is really interesting and that people want to join us and help pushing forward. So that's what I see when I look ahead, that we can leave when we're not in the companies, that the companies are stronger than when we started.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so sustainable in every aspect,
Absolutely,
many aspects.
because they won't join us if we aren't sustainable and if we don't have a bright future. So.
Indeed. Peter, anything you're...
No, I will just echo what Jessica said. I think that's the most important thing, that we take care of our people that we have in the company, and of course making sure that we are taking those bold decisions that needs to be taken. But also that we share the knowledge in a way, that we collaborate with the other partners. We need to, let's say, we have been used to many years and many decades to work with incremental change. But I think we need to be able then to be bold enough to also take larger steps, by collaborating with others and making sure that our people is also safe and secure, and that we are investing enough in competence development and so forth.
Right.
So, absolutely.
So the change will not come by itself. We're going to need to have some hard work to really
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Mm. Olivier, any final thoughts from you? Looking forward to for the next couple of years?
Yeah, a bit echoing what was said before. Human has to be better treated when it comes to manufacturing. So trying to avoid repetitive tasks and nights shift and this type of thing. The vision is to go towards what we call light out factory, autonomous plants, basically, not having to intervene to get the thing to produce, and following those trends that are set by like the car industry or semiconductor. So I think to do that, we need to bring more intelligence to the machine so that it can make some decisions which are made today by shop floor operators. And that's something we are working on. We need to get those insights from data, and not just on looking at the components' health to avoid a breakdown, but more the functionality of the process and detect some abnormal behavior so that we can feed that back to the control system. This is what we are working on. Of course, it's not in the next 2 years. I think it's a bit further ahead, but that is driving us in that direction.
All right, thanks, Olivier. Chandrashekar, anything in particular you're thinking about for the next couple of years?
What we see is us having the ability, both in terms of technology and reach, to create large-scale impact across the entire value chain. And especially, like you mentioned at the start, brownfield is an area where it's hard to do, but it's got to be done. And we've put a lot of effort into that as well. While the greenfield will happen and it's easier to happen, we are in the process of ensuring that we're able to propagate large scale into the brownfield projects as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's been some really insightful comments and remarks here from all panelists. Thank you very much for a great discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.